following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Box Score with Hal Bock. How you doing tonight? And what's the score, Hal Bock?
I'm doing good. I've recovered from New Year's Eve, which was spent quietly at home with my wife. But I'm doing fine. And Box Score tonight, what I've written about involves last night's national championship game, college football. We had for the third time in 4 years Clemson and Alabama, and I was pleased to see Clemson win that game and win it decisively. And why is that? Because I think the Alabama coach is a jerk. Nick Saban is a little full of himself, and I thought he needed to be taken down a notch. And he was last night because they got rubbed out pretty good. What I wrote about this week is Saban's rehabilitation plan for coaches who have fallen on hard times. He, on the sideline last night with the University of Alabama, was Coach D.J. Durkin. Who's D.J. Durkin? Well, he was the coach at Maryland, and his workouts were so strenuous that he had one of his players collapse and died. And the university launched a rather exhaustive investigation into his program and decided that he was a little over the top and fired him. As soon as he got fired, he went looking for somebody to help him, and somebody was there. It was Nick Saban. Nick Saban welcomes in coaches who have lost their jobs for various sundry misdemeanors. And so D.J. Durkin was welcomed into the Alabama house. The explanation was he was going to have professional development. Well, he certainly needed that after what he pulled at Maryland.
How?
And he's not, what's that, what?
How didn't they actually approve to retain, the board or trustees or whatever, act to retain him, and then there was such an outcry from the student body and
absolutely correct.
Yeah, that they had to get rid of him.
To keep him around.
Yeah.
It was a unanimous outcry from the students and the alumni.
Yeah.
Get rid of this.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, there was an attempt to whitewash the whole thing.
Well, not only did he get knocked off, but he took the president of the university with him. The president, who was opposed to him right along, decided to retire because it was such an ugly scene there. It was not a good picture for the University of Maryland. But Nick Saban said, fine, come on over. And Saban welcomed him into the Alabama home. And this is not the first time that Saban has taken a down-and-out coach under his wing. One of the coaches that he brought in was a guy named Mike Loxley. Mike Loxley was the offensive coordinator, and he came over from previous engagement at New Mexico, where his credentials included a 22-26 record. And not only that, not only did he only win 2 of 28 games, but he also got himself in hot water because of a sex and age discrimination charge, and also got himself in hot water because he was charged with punching one of his assistant coaches. And that affair led to a 10-day suspension and $25,000 settlement and a ticket to Nick Saban's School for Naughty Coaches. So Loxley was on the sidelines the other night as the offensive coordinator. Other coaches who have passed through this program were both USC coaches, Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. And both of them had very checkered past at USC. Kiffin,
yeah,
in addition to USC, had trouble with the Oakland Raiders and with University of Tennessee. So he was a 3-time loser, but his reputation was repaired by Nick Saban at Alabama. Although they had not a smooth sailing, and he had a little testy relationship with Saban. And he moved on to Florida.
Let me just interrupt for a second. I'm getting some bad reception. Are you guys getting it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I am too.
Okay, let's take a break, and I'm going to push a button, and and put it on hold, and you guys can call back and, if you would, pause for the cause, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We're going to kind of fix the technical thing. We have Al Blumkin, George Case III, David Hubler, myself, Ralph Tyko, and Hal Bock is the man, and we'll all be back at the drop of a hat. So we're all going to hang up, and I'm going to come back, and this is recorded. So here we go.
I'm back.
We're back.
Yeah.
George Case.
Al Blumkin is back. George, thanks for the kind words.
Oh, my pleasure, Al.
I appreciate them very much.
Hey, I enjoy talking with you. I'm glad that we can have those conversations. They're great.
Yeah. The Matt Dahlgren was terrific. Matt Dahlgren was terrific.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I thanked Matt too, because he's got quite a story, and I thought he handled it very well.
Yeah, I have the book. I read the book a number of years ago. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Are we going again, or what's the score?
Yeah.
Wait for Ralph.
Is everybody back?
Is Ralph?
Except Ralph.
I haven't heard him yet.
No.
I don't hear
Ralph's
him.
up in the control room working the board.
Yeah.
He's hitting all those buttons.
The host has joined the conference.
What? What did she say?
The host has joined the conference.
Oh, good.
She has. The host. Here I go, pushing the button again. Anybody I haven't acknowledged that's here? Okay.
I think we're all present and accounted for.
Stay with us. There's more to come on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
We are back. A little technical difficulty, but we got it all in, and everybody's back online. We have no static. Hal, you were talking.
Well, I was talking about Coach Saban's rehab program for down-and-out coaches, and DJ Durkin, who got fired at Maryland, was on the sidelines last night to help Alabama lose that game by a score of 44-16, I think.
Yeah.
And he was fired at Maryland, and now Maryland went on a search for a new coach. And I was saying that Mike Loxley, who was one of Saban's rehab candidates and now offensive coordinator with Alabama, Mike Loxley is going to be the new coach at Maryland. Now, this is his third time around at Maryland. He had been a running backs coach from 1997 to 2002, and then offensive coordinator, and briefly the interim head coach from 2012 to 2015. That's when he left for New Mexico. He was 1-5 during that interim period. And when Maryland decided to replace Loxley after 2015, they brought in this bright young assistant considered a hot property in the business. His name was DJ Durkin. So they're going around and around in circles at the University of Maryland in College Park. And we shall see if Loxley has been rehabilitated and can straighten out that program, which needs some straightening out. So that's what I wrote about this week, and I'm happy to discuss any or all of that with you guys. I always look forward to these sessions.
Okay, George Case, your reaction.
Well, I have a couple things. My background basically was, say, baseball and basketball, but when it comes to college sports, I did have some experience in knowing college basketball coaches, and I wanted to mention, being in the athletic footwear business, that if you noticed last night, Nike is very prominent in those two programs, and I did read where they believe that Nick Saban might possibly be making more money from Nike than he's making from the University of Alabama. And the shoe companies have gotten a little bit smart when it comes to football, because football, as I've mentioned before, is away from the field, and the kids don't see the logos and so forth like they do in basketball. So what the shoe companies are doing now, and if you look at some photographs from last night, and you'll see the Nike swoosh on Saban's shirt, on the Clemson football coach's shirt, on the players' shirts on both teams. So, you might not have to know that they're wearing Nike shoes, but you can sure see that Nike swoosh. And I just wanted to mention that, and how, your column and writing about it's really a merry-go-round with college coaches. They go from one program to another. Whoever's going to bid the highest number, that's where they're going to go. And, that's just the way the college games are. And I also have an article that I read not too long ago that some of the NCAA presidents, they're really in bed with the shoe companies. It's not so much that they're going to try to do anything with the NCAA. They might slap a few hands, and you look at that situation at Pitino with Louisville. Just yesterday, I pick up the newspaper, and Pitino is being interviewed at UCLA for the basketball program. He's coaching.
He's coaching.
Yeah, he's coaching in Greece right now, but he might be the new
next coach at
basketball coach at UCLA.
Wow.
Right.
Well,
so that's my 2 cents
Bill
on
Walton's idea. Bill Walton suggested that President Obama should be the next coach at UCLA. Where he came up with that from, I don't know. Although Obama's brother-in-law, Craig Robinson, was a college coach for several years. So maybe he thought that he was recommending his brother-in-law. I don't know.
Well, Hal, I don't really want to get away from football. I just had to mention my, thing with basketball. But I thought your article was terrific and so relevant to last night, when here Alabama and the fact that Saban has been in the forefront of everything, but he got it handed to him last night. But the big winner in the whole game, if you're looking at the shoe business and the logos, was Nike, because they were on both teams.
Yeah.
George, you'll know the answer to this. What is the derivation of the swoosh?
Well, it really goes back, I think, to to Greek mythology. It's the Nike was I guess a Greek god or whatever, and I think it was either Phil Knight or somebody came up with that, whether it was the marketing department or whatever. But it was always a logo that I guess had been around maybe a long time, but for the first time Nike really used it in athletic footwear and then in clothing. And I think that's where it has to be with a god of speed or something like that, I think, Hal. Okay. And I mean, that's my impression. I only knew Nike, and I've mentioned this before, before Nike was even a brand. And I was in that business, and people were starting to talk about, this new company with red boxes and these swooshes, and it took, the marketing and what they've done with athletes and with coaches and seeing it everywhere, that's the same premise that Under Armour has used, and it really works. I mean, if you put that impression out there enough, people are going to recall it. So when they go into a store to buy a pair of shoes and they see that swoosh, they're going to say, geez, I know I saw that on TV or whatever. And that's the theory behind athletic footwear marketing.
And the Just Do It motto is another winner for them.
It was. Yep.
It is.
They used to use that, Just Do It. They also used one with the running shoes, there is no finish line. They did one, I recall, with their running shoes. It's not the size of the pebble it's not the size of the mountain ahead of you. It's the size of the pebble in your shoe. So, I mean, they're very creative in what they've done.
Sure.
And that Just Do It campaign was sensational because it really tied in with performance athletic footwear and what Nike was all about.
Here's my question for the panel. Do you guys think that this whipping that Alabama took last night will humble Nick Saban at all?
No. Nah, I don't think so either.
No way, right?
No. I wanted to
make one comment I think Hal and you guys, egos are so big, and Saban is making so much money, and hey, he got whipped. He got whipped big time, but who knows what will happen next year? Clemson right now is in the catbird seat, and maybe Alabama will be back in there next year. So that's the way it is. But I thought that those two freshmen from Clemson were phenomenal. Plus the defensive effort that Clemson put out just bottled up. Alabama really couldn't do anything.
The quarterback and that wide receiver really were terrific.
Oh, they were freshmen. I mean, you figure they're playing high school high school football
ball a year ago. I know.
Right. Yep.
But also,
David Hubler has a thought, and I hope you will contribute, sir.
Oh, I was going back to the Loxley and the University of Maryland thing. It just makes me wonder, and I sort of followed Maryland athletics for a long, long time, since I've been down in this area for so long, and I had relatives here long before that who were attached to the University of Maryland. But it always makes you wonder whether they really had a tough time finding a coach. It's almost like the situation now with the Oscars. Who's going to be the MC on the Oscar show? They're going to find somebody, but they settled on Loxley as a known commodity despite his record at New Mexico. I mean, maybe he was, the first guy they called up from the old Rotodick system. I don't know, but it just seems to me that, third time around.
He arrives with some baggage. He
sure does.
Basically, the same thing is going on, from what I understand, with the Cincinnati Bengals. The leading candidate there is Hugh Jackson, who was fired from the Browns, and his 2 previous years with the Browns, he was 1-31.
Well,
they also flopped in Oakland a number of years ago. But the Bengals are so damn cheap that this guy, they'll probably get this guy for a lot less than they'd have to pay to another coach.
Well, he doesn't have a lot to sell himself. He's got to come cheap.
Marvin Lewis, who either was fired or quit after 16 years, recommended Hugh Jackson.
Well, he brought Hugh Jackson in as an assistant.
Right after the Browns fired him. Yeah.
Well, the Browns did a lot of firing of head coaches in recent years, so it's hard to hold that against them. They've been so terrible.
Oh, he was 1-31. That's the team won in 2017. The team won 0 games.
Yep.
They got rid of him, and they got a quarterback finally, Baker Mayfield, and they won 7 games. Well, if they might have made the playoffs if they didn't have kicking problems in the first month. Yeah.
They managed to win 2 games, and then they fired the guy. He played through 2 years with 1 win.
Yeah.
You had to wonder about that. But Greg Williams, who they brought in as coach,
well, he and Mayfield didn't get along.
Who, Williams?
No, but Hugh Jackson.
Oh, well, yeah.
And Mayfield. They finally drafted a quarterback after 20 years. They finally got somebody who can play quarterback for that team.
Well, they had that Johnny Manziel.
He was terrible.
So
anybody with half a brain knew that Johnny Manziel would not make it in the NFL.
Yeah, well,
we're going back to Otto Graham.
Yeah, well, that's not the same franchise.
I know that.
In Baltimore, yeah.
The Browns.
Yeah, I know.
One of my first heroes, Otto Graham. What a record he had. They won every year with the All-American Conference.
And Marion Motley, he was with the Browns.
Marion Motley, Lou Groza, that was my team.
They were a great early professional football team, no question about it.
Yeah.
Paul Brown.
I wanted to mention one thing, David, and Hal and Alan. In football, it's a little bit difficult if you're in a major metropolitan area. So, Maryland had a very good reputation in basketball, but football they struggled because they're competing really, for the entertainment dollar with the Redskins and the Ravens. Now, if you look at football in the South, and you're talking about Clemson, South Carolina, and Tuscaloosa, Alabama, they don't have the professional competition that the schools in the Northeast and the West Coast and the Midwest have. So, football is king.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
And you're also another situation, and we talked earlier about Louisville, the same thing in Louisville in basketball. I mean, I know for a fact that Rick Pitino was getting more money from Adidas than he was getting from University of Louisville. So where does his allegiance ride? And I'm sure that if Pitino goes out to UCLA, if he does, he's going to get a huge contract. Nike had always been out there, but, it could be that Adidas says, hey, we got a hell of a deal going with Pitino. We'll put him out in UCLA, and Adidas was always a major football and basketball brand at UCLA. So, that, again, I don't want to dominate this conversation about the athletic footwear business, but I'm telling you, it's the tail wagging the dog in both football and in basketball when it comes to college sports.
You're right about that. I'm not surprised
George,
at that.
Beautiful commentary.
Thank you.
Great, George. Yeah.
Thank you.
May I make my response to your article? You mentioned several coaches and their transgressions. And I'm thinking everybody in this country is entitled to a second chance. That's always been the credo of America. But you know what? You mentioned one guy, and I don't even know who he was. I don't follow anything but baseball anymore. But he had some sexual transgressions on campus. Am I correct?
Loxley. Like Loxley.
No, am I correct about was he with underage women on campus?
No, it had to do with a staff woman, and the details are not. I'm not up on the details; they're a little hazy, but I know it had to do with one of the women in the athletic department. And
was it between consulting adults? Is what I'm asking.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Okay, well, if it was between consulting adults. Then
no, I don't think it's that, Ralph. I think she was arguing that because she was a woman of a certain age, that they were discriminating against her. That's what I think it was all about.
Okay, but it wasn't.
She had been a man, would have been treated differently.
It wasn't diddling with co-eds. That's my point.
I don't think. No, I don't think so. I don't know what he did on his days off. I don't know.
No,
anything's possible.
My point was that I guess these guys do deserve a second chance, but some of the names I'm being heard. Pitino, is this his third scandal?
Unbelievable. And and George is saying that he'll get a ton of money if he goes to UCLA.
Well, I mean, that's, Hal, that's my impression. I mean, that's my knowledge of the business. Right. I've been away from it for a long time, but that's the way it used to be. I mean, the guys, if they were,
I don't think it's changed. I'm sure you're right. Yeah. His name carries a lot of weight. And they're a glamour university. They want a name guy. This was the university.
Larry Brown is coaching some small school in Texas now.
Who?
Larry Brown, coached Pitino. He's coached multiple teams on every level. Yeah.
I mean, he coached the girls team at some high school. If he needed a job, He's a basketball junkie. So.
Well, wanted a job. I'm sure at this age he doesn't need a job, but he wants one.
Well, Lane Kiffin's father was Monty Kiffin, who was a longtime defensive coordinator for the Eagles, and he was the one who brought Lane in. And Lane, he's now coaching Florida Atlantic on a 10-year deal because they're trying to become a major school, and so far it's not working out. And one of the funniest things was when he was coaching USC, ESPN one time they showed a parking lot, and one of the areas there said fire lane, and somebody sprayed Kiffin underneath that.
Okay.
And Sarkisian, the other one you mentioned, from what I understand, he's a boozer.
Yeah, drugs and booze, I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
what I'm curious about is, what do you think of Saban bringing these guys in to Alabama? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I mean, I know Ralph says second chances in America.
No, I think it's bad.
Everybody deserves a second chance.
When you're dealing with, trying to influence young men, I think it's bad.
I agree with you, Alan.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Alan, and I just want to again put my 2 cents in. The money is so big for these guys, and I know the way it works. Now, some program is going to go to Saban and say, hey, Nick, what's your recommendation? And he's going to give a name of somebody who worked either with him or rehabilitated by him or whatever, and they're going to take that as gospel, and they're going to go out and offer that particular coach money. That's the way it works. That's the way the game works. And I can tell you for a fact, because I knew a lot of these coaches, and I knew what they were doing, and they go from one program to another. And if a guy's being paid, it's like free agency in baseball today. If a guy's being paid $1 million to coach, say, Louisville, and he has a chance to make $2 million to coach at UCLA because he's being offered that, that's where he's going to go.
Oh, yeah. There's Urban Meyer at Ohio State retired, and his defensive coordinator was Greg Schiano,
right? Who
coached at, I believe he coached at Rutgers for a couple of years.
He coached at Rutgers, yes, he
and
did.
Then he went to Tampa Bay as a head coach and was fired after two losing seasons to avoid a player rebellion.
Right.
So he resigned,
now,
and the new coach, Ohio State, today, I saw this on ESPN, they brought in 2 assistants who would, this past season were at Michigan.
Right.
Michigan and Ohio State are supposed to hate each other.
Alan, one other point about Schiano, and I know Schiano. I mean, I was a Rutgers guy. Schiano was offered the head coaching job at University of Tennessee, and he accepted it, and the student body was so incensed because they recall Schiano being part of the Penn State, Joe Paterno, whole situation up there, and they rebelled and they claimed that they were not going to support the University of Tennessee program if Greg Schiano was hired as a coach because of his relationship with Paterno and Jerry Sandusky. And so the Board of Regents or the Board of whoever it is at University of Tennessee withdrew the offer to Schiano, and so the Schiano was staying at Ohio State, with Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
So that's the background on Schiano.
A lot of it the buddy system.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
It's like the old baseball managers from 60 years ago. Yeah.
I can tell you guys, it absolutely is the buddy system. Believe me. Football coaches, no football coaches. Basketball coaches, no basketball coaches. They go to each other's camps. They speak. They do all that kind of stuff. And if they're under a shoe contract, they've got that going for them too because they've got that in common.
Well, one of the questions I have is Steve Alford was just fired as basketball coach at UCLA, and he played for Bobby Knight,
right,
in Indiana, and Alford managed to lose in his tenure or so this season. They managed to lose to Belmont and lose to Liberty. I mean, when I heard that, I said John Wooden must be spinning in his grave over that. But do you think Alfred will get another job somewhere because he's tied into Bobby Knight, even though he was terrible at UCLA?
No, not because he's tied into Bobby Knight, but because he's now part of the fraternity of coaches. And as we just said, is the buddy system that goes on.
Yeah.
And he may have to become an assistant someplace, but he'll get another job. You know, it's a fraternity.
Well, they do, and I want to give you one quick story about this. I met Dick Vitale when he was an assistant to Dick Lloyd at Rutgers. Assistant. He went from being an assistant at Rutgers to the University of Detroit, head coach, to the Detroit Pistons, and now at ESPN he's making millions of dollars as an analyst. And I knew Dick when he was probably making, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 as an assistant coach at Rutgers. So you're talking about a coaching fraternity and knowing one another. And now with ESPN you got a position where he is now recommending to UCLA that they hire Rick Pitino. So that's the way it goes. That's the reality of college sports and college coaches.
If I want to watch a game that Vitale is doing, I mute the set.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's awful. Oh,
and when they had him and Brett Musburger together, that was deadly.
Yep. But you know what, Alan, I agree with you. But Vitale used that crazy on the air to make himself a fortune.
Yeah, they put him in the Basketball Hall of Fame either last year or the year before.
Yep.
He's doing it with one eye, too.
Yeah, well.
He's blind in one eye.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Vitale, when I first met him, and about a year later, I had him at a basketball coach's clinic, and he said to me, George, I'm making more money as a motivational speaker than I ever would make as a college basketball coach. So he used that motivational speaking background and all that other kind of stuff. And he told me one time, he said, "Yeah, I can cry on demand if I have to." That's just the way they do. And all of a sudden, you're looking at him when people talk about college basketball, they're going to talk about Dick Vitale because of the coverage being an analyst on ESPN.
He's also always praising coaches. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. May I ask you how about Saban and the president of the University at Alabama? Who runs Alabama? And who runs that program of rehabilitation? Does the president have input?
No, the rehabilitation is all Saban's doing. Just a little side thing that he's doing. I'm sure he thinks it's a nice thing to do for coaches who need a break and need help. But as far as the university goes, I'm sure the president of the university is in charge, but I'm sure that Saban makes a hell of a lot more money than the president or any of the faculty. Because after all, how many championships did he bring to Alabama?
That's right.
That counts for a lot with those people.
Yeah, a lot of money.
That's what I said earlier, Hal. That's the tail wagging the dog. I'm telling you, you take away that program, Alabama, and you say, okay, we're going to go and like NYU did. You say we're going to go to Division III. That would never happen. It would never happen.
No.
And the athletic departments run separately from the rest of the university because
they do.
Years ago I read an article about Forbes, in Forbes magazine. It was reprinted somewhere that if Michigan and Notre Dame, those are the two they use, were basically businesses, they'd be in the top 25 in this country.
That's right.
Yep.
Whoa.
But, a lot of it is also dependent on the loyalty of alumni. Alumni love to go back to their college and banner and all of this stuff,
They do.
And
that's Hal, you're absolutely right. And that's why I tell you for a fact, coaches will deny. They'll say, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. You know why? Because the boosters, the alumni, are the ones that are either supplying the cars or the money or whatever. Coach, says, hey, I don't know anything about that. just like what Tino was saying at Louisville. Well, I can tell you for a fact that they do know what's going on, and they don't want to be tied to it, so they'll deny it. But the presidents of the university are going to be the same way because
nothing that goes on in those programs is not run by and the coach is aware of what goes on. They're like CEOs, you know.
Yep, they are.
Hey, that has to go back to Paterno, and it has to go to Trump in the same manner. They both knew what was going on, or in this case, what is going on.
Yep.
And you're right. To get to that position, you've got to be the kind of guy that wants to know what's going on. So,
do you think anything happens at Duke University that Coach K doesn't know about? I mean, in the program, I'm talking about the basketball program.
Roy Williams denied the whole academic scandal that they had in North Carolina. Of course,
right.
The NCAA, when the NCAA investigated, quote unquote, they gave them a slap on the wrist.
Right, exactly.
And that is just what I was thinking about as a future program for us, how the NCAA and the politics of how they run things and, who gets suspended and who gets investigated.
They're like the U.S. Olympic Committee. They're a power unto themselves, the NCAA. You can't get them. Hal, did you ever try to get an interview with anybody over there?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
They can stonewall you better than the White House.
They have a thing with the scandal at North Carolina, and then a number of Brown University baseball players went over to the Cape Cod League, which is not a professional league. It's an independent league where players go to see if they have any chance of being signed to a baseball contract. And they suspended Brown for a couple of years because of this.
Exactly.
But North Carolina, the big colleges get nothing. They'll put them on probation for a year or two. They say they can't go to a bowl game, and that's the extent of it. But the small colleges will get it in the teeth.
Right.
Well, they don't draw the fans.
UCLA opened its season a couple of years ago in China, and 3 of their genius players stole some sunglasses and almost caused an international.
Oh yes,
including the kid the ball kid on the Lakers was one of them. I think
one of them was the ball kid. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's I love the game. I love watching games, but what goes on behind the scenes is a little seedy, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Somebody asked me who I was rooting for in the Clemson Notre Dame game. I said Clemson, and a friend of mine was telling me how bad a guy Dabo Sweeney was. I said, at least he doesn't have a dead body on his record, because Brian Kelly let a kid climb some pole a few years ago in a gale wind, and the kid fell off and got killed. And nothing happened there over this.
Yeah.
The family settled with Notre Dame for a large sum of money, but nobody was canned or suspended for that incident. To me, that's a lot worse than Dabo Sweeney preaching at Clemson.
I got to tell you guys all know, I think, I'm sure I mentioned it earlier, that my grandson is a freshman at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is 9th in the country in basketball right now. And I was talking to him the other day. He's home on winter break. I was talking to him the other day, and I was saying, you see a lot of the players? He said, I've never seen a player on campus. I've never seen an athlete on campus. So I don't know where they hide them, but it's a big campus. But still, you'd think by accident. Dave Hubler told the story a couple of weeks ago of Cal Ramsey sitting down at his table in the lunch cafeteria, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's happening right now in these major programs.
No, they do. Hal and David and Alan, you're right. I mean, and part of it, I can tell you what they do at those colleges. Those kids are so insulated. They have tutors. They have study halls. They don't go to the same classes for the most part that the average student will go to. and they have all the benefits. Now a coach will say, well, they work so hard. Because, yes, they do. They get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They have a, practice in the morning. They have breakfast, and they go to class. Well, they're being tutored all that time, or they're having study halls within the athletic department. So I would say probably very rarely on any college campus at a major program will a student run into a so-called student athlete at that program.
Well, my alma mater, Pitt, is in the ACC, and last year they won 0 games in the conference, which I predicted after their non-conference schedule was over last year. This year they hired Jeff Capel, who was the number 1 assistant for this year to Krzyzewski, and they got buried by North Carolina Saturday. It was humiliation. They lost by 25 points, and the whole second half was garbage time. So now they've got to play in Pittsburgh. They've got to play Louisville tomorrow night, and then after that game, they've got to go down to Raleigh to play North Carolina State Saturday night. So these kids have no time for, to go to classes.
Right.
And it's 1 and out anyway.
Oh yeah, in basketball it's 1 and out. Football's 3 and out, and they were bitching about how with the Clemson quarterback that it's a shame that he can't get to the NFL till 2021.
Well, the Ohio State quarterback bailed out today or yesterday.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, and of course the papers here have him going right away to the Giants. Yeah.
Well, he's probably going someplace, but maybe not to the Giants because the Giants don't have that high a pick.
Yeah,
they'll go in the first 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, but the thing is that to me that the whole thing is unconstitutional because anybody, if they show they can do a job, they should be allowed to go to the what they think is the highest level for them. And it's unconstitutional. These rules they have are unconstitutional. A friend of mine asked me, he thought the NFL should play on Saturday nights during the meat of the season. I said, you think they're going to disrupt the college schedules? They have a free farm system there.
Well, the draft is unconstitutional.
I know that, yeah.
The whole idea of a player being committed to a certain team because that team drafts him is not reasonable. You could go to work anywhere you want to work in this country if they'll hire you, But now athletes are tied to, in a draft, are tied to a team that drafts them. So
yeah, unless you play hardball like Eli Manning did when he was drafted. So I'm not going to play for whoever,
San Diego,
Denver or whatever,
Yeah, but he had a trump card. He was playing outfield in rookie league for the Yankees.
No, that was Elway.
Elway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Elway was the first one. He said he wasn't going to play for the then Baltimore Colts, I think it was.
That's right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and then you said Eli Manning.
No, Eli Manning. They traded Philip Rivers and Eli Manning between San Diego and the Giants because I think Manning didn't want to go to play in San Diego.
That's right. That's correct. But, both teams came out of that thing all right.
Pretty good, yeah.
Had a great career in New York, and Rivers is having a great career in San Diego.
Yeah, but if you draft high enough, you can force something like that.
If you're a good enough player, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But you're right, Al, about the players. Look, one of the things I was watching the basketball draft when I was in Pittsburgh, because I couldn't go to the ball game there because my mobility is limited. I watched the first, and the Sixers picked some kid from Villanova. His mother worked in the Sixers office, and then immediately they traded him to Phoenix. The kid was so happy when he was drafted by the Sixers, and then right at 10 minutes after he sits down, they announced that they traded him to Phoenix.
He didn't get to hold up his jersey, right?
No, just about,
That
was terrible to me.
The athletes
last
are well
NBA
compensated.
star from Villanova was Paul Harrison.
No, you're going back 60, almost 70 years on that.
No, I can think there have been other guys who have been really good for.
Yeah, the athletes are well compensated.
We know that, yeah.
But ultimately, they're cannon fodder. All they are pieces of meat.
Yeah.
Be passed around from team to team when they feel obliged to do that. And I don't know that the athletes care particularly. I mean, I think they want to play professional ball. I think they'd like to be on winning teams, but that's another matter. The kid coming up and being drafted to the NBA, he wants to play in the NBA, and he doesn't care if it's in Portland or in Peoria. You know, he wants to play in the NBA. And a guy who's drafted by the NFL, he wants to play in the NFL. Those are the dreams of these kids coming up through the high school and college levels.
Well, I don't know if I think you saw this, but the baseball union is complaining about the fact that the revenues in baseball are so high and the salaries haven't kept up, have remained stagnant. So I put down on one site that I saw this on. I said, I'm going to start a fundraiser for the baseball players.
Yeah, minimum wage is $500,000.
Yeah.
$555.
Yeah. So basically, they're saying that because
they really have a tier.
The revenue has expanded tremendously in baseball, that these athletes should be paid, I guess average $20 million a year, no matter how bad you are.
The price
minimum wage in baseball is $555,000.
Yeah.
The minimum wage in the country is $7.50, I think, something like that. Strange world we live in.
I think it was Branch Rickey who said he bemoaned not paying the big stars, but paying for mediocrity. Who said that, Al?
Bill Vack.
Bill Vack. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Branch Rickey, I said, Ian Slaughter had one of the greatest quotes about Branch Rickey. He said he would open the vault to get you a nickel change.
All right, guys. David, we haven't heard much from you. Is there anything you want to contribute, or any more that you want to contribute?
Oh no, thanks for thinking of me. No, I football is not my game anymore. I'm afraid I sort of lost a lot of touch with it pretty much. If the Giants get into the playoffs, then I'll watch. But in fact, maybe watch half the game. But baseball is my game, and that's it.
You know what changed me for football? I agree with David, by the way. I have very lukewarm feelings about the game. Go see the movie Concussion. And it talks about the doctor who discovered CTE, the brain injury that kills so many of these players, and the violence of the game and the collisions of the game. And guys, the most recent one, 2 examples. The Washington Redskins lost 2 quarterbacks this season with grotesque broken legs. I mean, It's a sport, boys, So I feel the same way as David. I have very mixed feelings about football games and watching them.
Hey, I'd like to see it played as two-hand touch.
Well, never happen.
Well, and I agree with Alan. It'll never happen. But that's the way that should be played.
Well,
things I'd like.
Aside from what goes on in the field, I find the NFL the most reprehensible league imaginable. I mean, they allow the fans to sit in the seat, and they charge them top dollar. Sometimes they even charge them a fee just to buy the tickets. It's just, and then of course, if you root for one particular team and happen to get to the Super Bowl, you may have to drive or fly all the way across the country to pay $1,000 to sit up in the end zone in a city that you've never been to before. It's just criminal how the NFL milks money from every possible source it can find.
In 1979 and 1980, I held season tickets to the Jets in Shea Stadium. The seats were bad. Would have been great for baseball, but for football they were lousy. And in 1980, New Orleans came in 0-14. I told the guy I had the seat with us, they lose this one, that's it. And they did. The Jets did. And I haven't been to a pro football game since. But the experience I had of the 2 years I had the season tickets cured me forever from going to a pro football game.
Alan, Chuck Muncie scored the winning touchdown that day, didn't he?
What?
Chuck Muncie scored the winning touchdown, right, Alan?
Yeah.
7-0, I think the score was.
I have to look that up, but
you look it up. I covered that game.
Yeah, I sat through a game against the Houston Oilers that almost covered the full overtime, and it was raining the whole game. I was a lot younger then.
Well, so were we all.
You're all, yeah.
Yes.
But forget it.
Talking about 40 years right there. Hey, George, I have one final question for you.
Yep.
Hal mentioned how despicable the NFL is. Colin Kaepernick, this was a subject that we covered on both shows extensively. Was the Nike campaign successful with him as him at the forefront?
Well, I think, again, I said it earlier, I haven't seen the numbers, but I have to think the exposure and the fact that, Kaepernick might get another shot in the NFL. Yeah, I'd say Nike was happy with it. It wasn't designed to sell shoes. It was designed to sell the brand. And I think it accomplished that goal.
At this point, I almost hope he doesn't get another shot so he can sue them for buku bucks.
Very hard to prove.
That's why they have courts.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Very, very, very hard to prove.
We don't have courts right now. The federal courts are shut down thanks to the president. So
right.
There are no courts right now. We'll have to wait until we get the government back.
Yeah, well, he doesn't give a good goddamn about how these people who are working for the federal government that are furloughed or suspended have to show up, to work without pay, which in the old days was called slavery. He doesn't give a good goddamn about any of these people.
Shame. And part of what he did, he shut down the system that is working to convict him, not necessarily the Mueller.
Good thinking, Ralph. You're right on target.
Am I right about that?
I think.
Well, he's supposed to be coming on TV now, so we'll have to see what he has to say.
You want to sit through that? That's Gegas or as I say in French. I can't stand listening to him for 1 second when he's on the newscast. I'm sure he's not going to sit through a speech of his.
I'm waiting for Sarah Huckabee to tell us what happened.
Yeah.
There's so much. And she's eye candy for a lot of folks out there listening.
Yeah.
Eye candy? Guys.
Right,
man.
Yeah. Licorice, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I could never
I'm with you.
I can't stand licorice.
That's why I can't stand
That is what we used to call in the old days a two-bagger.
Yeah, well,
anyway.
You want one eye candy, put it on the Weather Channel every once in a while.
Oh, I got my eye candy right here. She says, "How long have you been on?" It's been an hour. I love you guys. Thank you. It's been fun.
It always is on the show.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.
It's very enjoyable.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everybody.
Be well. Talk next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Adios. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.